Modern medicine has had 400 years, 400 years of research, 400 years of clinical trials, 400 years of pharmaceutical development, $12 trillion spent every single year. And it still cannot replicate what a weed in your driveway has done for 8,000 years. Not approximately 8,000. Exactly 8,000. In 2011, researchers placed an extract of this plant next to leukemia cells in a controlled laboratory setting. The cancer cells began destroying themselves. The healthy cells sitting right next to them, untouched. Their oncology partner submitted those findings to Health Canada, the Canadian equivalent of the FDA. Human clinical trials were approved. Your doctor has not mentioned this plant once, not in passing, not as a footnote, not at all. That is not an oversight. That is arithmetic. Every year, Americans spend $47 billion, billion with a B, on prescription medications for conditions this plant has addressed for centuries. Not addressed in theory. In documented practice. That number goes up every single year. This plant stays free. The story of how this plant disappeared from American medicine is not a coincidence. It is a decision, made by people with very specific reasons and very specific bank accounts. And the story of who made that decision starts right now. 1987, Eastern Tennessee, Cherokee County, a place where the mountains are older than most nations. A man named Raymond Birdsong received a diagnosis: chronic lymphocytic leukemia. The oncologist at Knoxville General sat across from him and laid out the options. Aggressive chemotherapy, experimental drug protocols, a treatment plan that would cost more than most Americans make in a year. Raymond Birdsong thanked the doctor, shook his hand, and drove home. He did not call the pharmacy. He did not call his insurance company. He walked to the edge of his property, to the field his grandmother had walked him through as a boy, and he picked what she had always called the first medicine. What the Cherokee had used for 1,000 years before a single hospital existed on American soil. The Cherokee did not call it a weed. They called it medicine. The difference between those two words is worth $67 billion a year. He washed the roots. He boiled them. Every morning. Before breakfast. Before anything else. No prescription. No insurance authorization. No copay. No waiting room. 26 years later, a journalist from the Appalachian Voice drove up that same mountain road looking for Raymond Birdsong. People in the county had been talking about him. The man who walked away from his diagnosis. The man who was still here. She found him in the same field. Still picking. He was not frail. He was not diminished. He was in that field the same way he had always been. Deliberate, unhurried. Like a man who had already won. His words to her were 4 sentences. The plant was here before the doctors. It will be here after. My grandmother trusted it. I have no reason to stop. The Cherokee called this plant something. It translates to the one that returns when they try to remove it. Right now, you are thinking, that is Cherokee land. That is ancient tradition. That is far from where I live. Stay with me. Because what grows in that Cherokee field grows in every crack of every sidewalk in every city in this country. We will get there. First, the science they buried. The year 659, Tang Dynasty, China. The imperial court commissioned the most thorough medical record assembled in human history up to that point, the Tang Materia Medica. This was not a collection of folk remedies. This was the official medical standard of the most powerful empire on earth, compiled by government physicians, verified by imperial authority, distributed across a nation of 60 million people. And in that document, one plant appears more than any other. Not ginseng, not opium, not any compound they sell today. The plant growing in your driveway right now. In that document, it receives specific notation for liver disorders, digestive failure, and systemic infection. That notation has been carried forward in Chinese medical texts for 1,366 years. Not as folklore, not as superstition. In active clinical use. In documented practice. For 1,366 consecutive years. Then 2011. A study filed in the U.S. National Library of Medicine, sitting there right now, available to any American with an internet connection. The researchers, Dr. Seeram Pandey and his team at the University of Windsor. Their finding, officially recorded, permanently archived. Search Ovaje and Pandey, 2011, on pubmed.gov. It is still there. It has always been there. Dandelion root extract activated caspase-8, a protein that tells cancer cells to shut themselves down. Not slow them down. Shut them down. The leukemia cells began apoptosis, programmed cell death. They destroyed themselves from the inside out. The healthy blood cells sitting right beside them. No significant change. No toxicity. No collateral damage. The extract found the cancer. And only the cancer. That level of selectivity is what pharmaceutical companies spend decades and billions of dollars trying to engineer. This plant does it naturally. It has always done it naturally. The findings were significant enough that Health Canada approved the application for human clinical trials. Not preliminary approval, full approval. Now the third layer. That same archive, the U.S. National Library of Medicine, holds a 2022 review documenting that inulin isolated from this root blocks alpha-glucosidase, the enzyme your body uses to pull sugar into the bloodstream. Blocking that enzyme slows the absorption of sugar after every meal. Every single meal. Blocking alpha-glucosidase is the exact same biological target as acarbose, a prescription diabetes drug generating $800 million a year in the United States alone. One requires a prescription and a trip to the pharmacy. One requires you to walk outside. It costs nothing to grow, nothing to harvest, nothing to process, and it cannot be patented. Cherokee County, Tennessee. Raymond Birdsong's Field. A county most Americans couldn't find on a map. The kind of place that gets forgotten on purpose. That is one place this plant grows. Here is the fact that changes everything about this conversation. Taraxacum officinale is not native to this continent. The early settlers brought it here on purpose, not by accident, on purpose, as medicine, as food, as a survival crop that required zero cultivation. And then it spread. The United States Department of Agriculture confirms this plant now grows in all 50 states. Not most. All. It grows in the sidewalk crack outside your front door, in the strip of grass between the road and the curb, in every park, every vacant lot, every unmowed field, in every zip code in this country. And the Native American oral tradition, referenced in research now filed in the U.S. National Library of Medicine, documents this plant being used to treat leukemia and breast cancer long before Western medicine set foot on this land. Not as folklore. As medicine. You do not need to drive to Cherokee County. You do not need a prescription. You do not need a dime. You need to step outside. But before you do, you need to understand why no one ever told you this. And who has been making money off your not knowing. 3 industries, 3 reasons, 3 sets of numbers that explain everything. The global diabetes drug market, $67 billion every single year. That is not revenue from curing diabetes. That is revenue from managing it. Month after month, year after year, for the rest of your life. Metformin alone, the most commonly prescribed blood sugar drug in America, pulls in over $3 billion a year. The same biological pathway that inulin from this plant activates, naturally for free, growing in your backyard, is the pathway that generates that $67 billion. You do not build a $67 billion annual industry by telling patients to walk outside. Second industry. Bayer. The company that owns Monsanto. They made $25 billion off American farmland in 2023 alone. Their best-selling product in American hardware stores, Roundup. The plant Roundup is most aggressively marketed to kill. This one. Bayer is not selling weed killer. Bayer is selling you a belief that a lawn without this plant means you are responsible, that you care about your property, that you are a good neighbor. They have been selling that belief for decades. Walk into any Home Depot right now. They are still selling it today. Third industry, the herbal supplement market in the United States. Nearly $13 billion a year. Walk into any Whole Foods. Go to the supplement aisle. Find dandelion root extract. $24 to $49 a bottle. What they put in that bottle is growing free in your yard right now. They could not patent the plant, so they patented the process and sold you back what your great-grandmother just bent down and picked. It cannot be patented. It cannot be monopolized. It cannot be made scarce, no matter how badly they need it to be. Here is what you can do today. Not tomorrow. Not after you order something online. Today, no equipment, no money, no skills you do not already have. No app, no subscription. Just the knowledge that people in this country used to pass down from grandmother to grandchild, before that knowledge was made to seem unnecessary. Taraxacum officinale. 4 things to look for. First, the leaves. Jagged edges. Growing flat against the ground in a starburst pattern. Dark green. Each leaf points outward like the spoke of a wheel. Those jagged edges are where the French name comes from. Dandelion. Lion's tooth. Second, the root. One single taproot driving straight down into the earth. Brown gold on the outside, white on the inside. Cut it open. White sap comes out immediately. That sap contains taraxacinic acid, the compound confirmed in peer-reviewed research as this plant's primary anti-inflammatory agent. Third, the stem. Hollow. No branches. If you press it, it bends clean. It does not snap like a woody stem. Fourth, the flower. 1 yellow flower per stem. No exceptions. If it branches, different plant. Walk past it. Where to pick? At least 100 feet from any highway or busy road. Nothing from any lawn that has seen a spray bottle in the last 2 years. Look for patches growing in unmowed fields, along fence lines, at the edge of woods. In ground that has been left alone long enough to remember what it is. Pick in the morning. Before the sun is fully up. The compounds in the root are at their highest concentration in the early hours. This is not folk wisdom. This is documented in the same research sitting in the U.S. National Library of Medicine. Raymond Birdsong's method. The same method recorded in the Tang Materia Medica 1366 years ago. Wash the root, slice it thin, bring water to a boil. Drop the root in. Turn the heat down. Let it simmer 20 minutes. Strain it. 1 cup every morning. That is the whole protocol. Used by Tang Dynasty physicians in the year 659. Used by Cherokee healers for 1,000 years on this soil. Used by Raymond Birdsong every single morning for 26 years. And now documented in research filed permanently in the U.S. National Library of Medicine. You do not need their prescription. You do not need their $67 billion supply chain. You do not need to buy back what already belongs to you. Roots of Legend records what they need you to forget. If you are still watching, you already know why this matters. That makes you part of something most people will never find. In 1896, a physician at Johns Hopkins documented a plant that lowered arterial pressure without a single side effect. His findings were published in 3 major medical journals. Then they disappeared from every major cardiology curriculum within 20 years. The heart drug industry today is worth $50 billion a year. That is not a coincidence. That story is next.